Squad Busters has recently gone into soft launch, and I'm going to be talking about 15 tips to help you improve your Squad Busters game. The first tip is the chest price amounts. If you didn't know that the chest price correlates to how many units you have in your squad, it starts with 3 and then goes up to 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 40, and 50. Once you hit that 50 mark, any units that you get past that, the chest will still always cost 50. Tip number 2 is fusions do reduce the amount of coins that your next chest will cost. The amount of coins that the chest cost is based on the number of units in your squad. It doesn't matter whether they're normal units, fusion units, or mega units. And while we're on the topic of fusions, tip number 3 is that fusions are also a stronger version of the character. Usually it's about 3.5 times their HP and about 2 times their DPS for a fusion unit. The effect on abilities will vary from ability to ability, but typically its damage effects are multiplied by 2 and healing effects are multiplied by 2.5. Alpi from Royale API in the Clash Royale space made an awesome link that I will leave in the description below if you want to check this out. It has fusion multipliers listed out here, so the witch her fusion HP is 3.5 times, fusion DPS is 2.10, and you can see all the values here for the current units that are in the game, and then you can also see some really cool things like how many chests, boxes, and trees are on certain worlds, and everything like that. So honestly, a really cool link, and shout out to Alpi for making this. And again, I'll leave a link to this in the description below if you want to check it out. Tip number 4 is going to be how to properly use your coins. I would say that the most value you can get from your coins is using the chest tickets, which we'll talk about in a little bit. The chest tickets will give you the most value, and make sure you have a high win streak before purchasing extra chest tickets so you can get those extra spins. And tip number 5, if you're going to be purchasing anything from the shop, make sure you use a creator code. My code is FullFrontage if you would like to support the channel, and any support is greatly appreciated. Tip number 6 is going to be talking about those chest tickets. Tickets should be claimed from Squad Journey when you're sitting at 0 out of 3 tickets. It takes 3 hours to regain 1 ticket, so you want to make sure that you're sitting at 0 out of 3, so that way you don't waste tickets and start that timer. If you know you're going to be playing a lot, then sure, go ahead, claim them from the Squad Journey and other places. But I would recommend, if you're not going to be buying a lot of coins, then I would save your coins in purchasing the chest tickets with them to make sure that you are going to be playing at the time that you're purchasing them, to make sure that you don't waste that time to generate those chest tickets. Tip number 7 is win streaks. When you purchase those chest tickets, you want to make sure that you do have a win streak active. I believe the highest extra spins you can get on a chest from win streak is 3, but the placement of where you finish in your match matters. First place, you get 5 spins. Second place, you get 4 spins. And then I don't know if third place gets 4 spins, but the lowest is 3. And I think third to fifth is 3 spins that you get from the chest. So if you finish first place and you have a win streak active, you can get 8 spins on a chest, which is huge because it'll either give you a higher quantity of characters or a higher rarity of characters. I actually also just recently got this evolution from a chest, a Barbarian King Epic Evolution. It was a free classic that I got from a chest, which is absolutely crazy. Tip number 8 is going to be modifiers. With certain modifiers, you need to get certain units. For example, in Turbo Overload, you don't really need chickens. You can focus on everything else because you're going to be getting a ton of boots anyway, so the chickens don't really help you. In Loot Goblin Rush or Pinata Party, any modifiers that really give you a lot of resources, you don't really need to get a supplier. And by suppliers, I mean like Goblin, Greg, Mavis if you're at that point. You don't really need those units because you're already getting a ton of resources, or Bow to be able to farm monsters because you're already getting a ton of coins, so you don't really need to get those extra coins. If they're the only things available, then sure, you can get them. Bow might be a little bit more helpful so you can take down bosses quicker, but I would prioritize getting tanks and healers and movement speed and melee/range units, things like that. Tip number 9, let's talk about the general team balance. There are currently 6 default types of units in game: all-arounder, supplier, attacker, defender, speedster, and healer. Those are the 6 units that you can find, or 6 types of units you can find. But I would also break them up into certain categories because movement is its own category. I would classify this as like Chicken and Hog Rider, units that boost your movement speed, max as well. And then also spawners. This would be Witch, Royale King, Mortis, units that spawn in extra things, the Chicken in its second stage. even that's kind of a spawner in itself, because having those spawners is also really helpful to get some extra units to distract your opponents. So I would say for a general team balance, typically in most matches, you definitely want healers, you definitely want movement, you definitely want tanks, and you definitely want DPS units, whether that's going to be melee-based or range-based. Those are the attackers in all-arounder situations. Barbarian is considered all-arounder, where he's kind of a tank, but also does a decent amount of damage. And then you have units like Colt and Shelly, where they're just mainly attackers because they don't really have a lot of health, but they do a lot of damage. Tip number 10 is going to be the achievement book. This is going to be super important to pay attention to and make sure you're claiming right away as those unlock, because if you don't claim the achievement, you won't be able to progress towards the next step of that achievement. So you want to make sure you claim those as soon as they are available after you complete a match. Tip number 11 is going to be the spell events. This will appear in your plaza. You want to make sure that you are paying attention to these spell events and make sure you are able to unlock as many spells as quickly as possible. And always make sure you have a spell on you in battle. Using spells is a fantastic way to engage and disengage from fighting. So keeping an eye on these spell events to be able to unlock more spells is going to be super impactful for you. And tip number 12, while we're on the topic of spells, let's talk about canceling spells. This is super, super important and something that is not really well known. If you accidentally select the spell or you go to use the spell and then you decide you don't want to use it, simply just drag away from where you started the spell, and then until you see the radius disappear off screen, that means your spell action has been canceled, and then you can just let go of the button and your spell will go back to your inventory and you can save it for later to use at a more optimal time. Tip number 13 is going to be consumables. This has been a hot topic, and honestly, people are still conversing it. I've seen people switch their point of view, whether it's pay to win or not, but let's talk about the consumables anyway, and the 5 different ones that you can get inside of Squad Busters. So consumables will be able to be purchased with coins, but I recommend saving the coins for chest tickets at the start while you progress through the game, because the chest tickets will help you get more characters quicker rather than just wasting them on consumables to kind of help you win. But I've also used fusion keys twice and lost both times I used them, so you know, we'll see. So reroll. Reroll can only be used once per chest, but can be used on as many chests throughout the game. The second consumable is a free key. These are the same keys that you get from busting squads, from busting bosses, or you can occasionally find with Penny's treasure map. These keys can be consumed every 60 seconds and can be used after 60 seconds from the match start. So you can't use it right as the match starts. You have to wait 60 seconds and then you can use it. The epic keys. These keys will allow you to unlock a chest for free, and they will contain an epic unit. It is important to note that you can use these keys every 60 seconds. You have to wait 60 seconds from the start of the match, so you can't spam it right at the beginning. Fusion keys. This one's a little bit more complex. It will give you a chest for free and will automatically contain a fusion unit. However, it's important to note that when you're choosing what fusion unit you want to get, try to select one that you don't have any duplicates of that squad member. What do I mean by that? If you have a Barbarian or 2, and then you really want a fusion Barbarian and you spend your fusion key and a Barbarian pops up, don't use it because you already had 1 or 2 in your squad. You'd rather go for somebody who you didn't have in your squad and get all 3 copies of them to get the fusion. That is how you will be able to get the most value out of your fusion key. Even if the fusion that you see is good, it's important to note, try to get the most value out of it that you can with that. And fusion keys are a little bit different than the other keys. They have a cooldown of 120 seconds. So this way you'll only be able to use a fusion key once in a match, because you have to wait 1 minute after the match starts, and then you have to wait another 120 seconds to use the fusion key. And the 5th consumable is going to be mega units. There are currently 2 in the game, El Tigre and Dragon Chicken. I'm going to have a separate tip for this in just a moment, but I want to talk about something else first. Tip number 14 is going to be, when do I farm versus when do I fight? This is a bit of a unique question because there's really no 100% correct answer, but I'm going to give you my advice anyway. You want to pay attention to the gem account on the left-hand side of the screen. If someone has a lot more gems than you, odds are that you need to farm a bit more because they're probably pretty far ahead. It's usually a good indicator of where you stand with the power of your squad. Next thing is, if you have a similar gem count to somebody, then it's going to be important to evaluate your own squad first, and then following these steps, also look at the opponent squad, because it's a very quick split-second decision that you have to be able to make. So here's a checklist that would probably indicate that you can engage with an opponent. Do you have more tanks than them? Do you have a healer? Do you have melee and range damage? Are you at an advantage with spawn units? Do you have skeletons from the Witch, recruits from the Royale King, bats from Mortis, etc.? Do you have boots if you need to escape? This is a really important one. If you're going into a fight and you have like 0 boots or 1 boots and you need to escape and they're sitting on like 10, they're going to be able to catch up with you and take you down. So it's going to be super important to realize your resources and if you have enough to disengage if you need to. Speaking of disengage, do you have a good spell that will allow you to either engage in combat or disengage if you need to? There are certain situations, for example, with the bomb. If you can throw the bomb in there, sometimes the opponent will run in the opposite direction, and that's a really good way to disengage. So you might not always want to use your spell to engage in fight, but instead keep your spell to see if you need to use it to disengage from a fight. Are there NPC monsters in the way? Sometimes if you're sitting there, this isn't a manually attacking game, it automatically attacks. So sometimes if there are NPCs in the way, you might be fighting with somebody, an NPC kind of strolls in, and then you end up attacking the NPC instead of the other opponent. So this is going to be important to note. Focus on your surroundings, see if there's anything around you that might distract or disrupt your ability to fight and take somebody down. And the final and somewhat important one is there anybody else around you? If you're in the middle of a fight, are you going to get third partied? If you're in a fight between the guy with in third place and you're in first place, is the second place guy going to come in and completely wipe you both out and then you both lose? It's going to be super important to recognize your surroundings and keep an eye on that. There will be a little gem indicator on the edges of the screen that kind of indicate when somebody's closing in, and you can see their gem count to see, hey, is this somebody that I need to worry about? If they're really low, maybe not. If they're moderately high and you're in the middle of a fight, might be something you need to disengage with. And tip number 15 is going to be understanding the mega units. So we talked about mega units as a consumable, but this is a little bit more of an in-depth tip on how to utilize and understand the mega units. So there are going to be a few rules for drawing a mega in-game, but it's going to be important to note also that these percentage values could be different / might need some tweaking once the team sees all the data and everything like that. So take these with a grain of salt because these were given during the dev build, so things might have changed, but it should be roughly around the idea of it. So the first thing is mega units will not be available for the first 60 seconds or the last 30 seconds of the match. So anytime between after the first 60 seconds and before the last 30 seconds of the match, that is when mega units will be available to obtain from a chest. The chances for a mega chest are increased by the following. At a match timer, it'll be plus 1% per minute. Opening a chest using a premium key, if you use an epic key, it'll go up by 0.5%. If you use a fusion key, the chance to find a mega will go up by 1.5%. If you are behind in a match, this is a nice little catch-up mechanic. You will get plus 1% per 100 gems behind the leader. So the person in first place, if you're behind them by X amount of, if you're behind them by 300 gems, then it's a 3% chance increase. Second, plus 1% per 10 units behind the biggest squad. I believe this does not include the fusion units as 3. I believe this counts fusion units as 1 unit because that's what they are. Percentage from the mega collection, it'll go from plus 0.2% to plus 2% based on the different types of megas owned. The types is going to be the important indicator here, because if you have 50 of LT Gray but you don't have a Dragon Chicken unlocked at all, then it'll only increase by the smaller portion. You need to have both mega units or any future mega units to increase your percentage chance to find megas in a match. This stat will become a lot more relevant when there are more megas introduced into the game. Right now, not that significant with only 2 megas. And the scenarios where mega chests are reduced, it'll be total megas in a match. It is a minus 5% chance to find a mega if there's already a mega in the match. And if there's already a mega in your squad, then it will be reduced by 15% per mega in your squad. So there's going to be an opportunity where you could get 2 megas already, but if there are already megas in a match, you kind of lose an opportunity to find it, because theoretically there should only be 1 mega, unless of course it's like the mega modifier mode, which is super fun because everybody gets a mega right off the bat for free. But those are the megas. That was a little bit more in-depth, which is kind of why I wanted to make the megas a separate tip. And some bonus rapid fire tips. Make sure you come in daily to claim your free chests. They happen about every 8 hours. They'll appear on this little chest platform in the middle. And if you see little sparkles around your characters, you can actually go ahead and claim coins from them. And I believe the amount of coins depends on the rarity from it. So that is going to do it. Oh, and let's have it end the video with some fun emotes that we can get. Ooh, just all common emotes, but hey, we'll take some emotes. But if you guys are looking for more quality Squad Busters content, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on that notification bell so you don't miss on any Squad Busters videos.